Right, the live stream should be live now, Chairman.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome to members of the public and to councillors and visiting members of the public this evening. This is the meeting of the Cabinet for Colchester Borough Council on the 23rd of November 2020. These meetings are being remotely held in line with the government's provisions and regulations introduced to enable local government decision-making meetings to be held remotely. The meeting is being broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel. The meeting will also be available to view on the Council's YouTube channel afterwards. Visiting councillors, members of the public and officers not taking part in the meeting actively will be asked and requested to turn off their cameras until they are invited to speak. Once you are invited to speak, please put your camera on and make sure your microphone is unmuted. So when requested, come forward, unmute your microphone and put your screen on, please. The active voice recording comes from the microphone, so that's important for us to hear you speak. When speaking, speak clearly and slowly, please. So I will indicate when someone else is going to speak, but please, in order for Cabinet members to have their say, please indicate with your raised hand function. So I am the Chair of the Cabinet. I am Mark Corey, Leader of Colchester Borough Council, and around the meeting this evening are councillors who are on the Cabinet and who will be speaking this evening and taking part in the meeting. So if I can go around in this order for you to introduce yourselves, please. That's Adam, Martin, Teresa, David, Mike and Julie. Adam, please.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Adam Fox, and I'm the portfolio holder for housing.
Martin seems to be frozen, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Councillor Teresa Higgins. I'm the portfolio holder for commercial services.
Good evening. My name is David King. I'm the Cabinet Member for Business and Resources.
Good evening. I'm Mike Lilly. I'm the Cabinet Member for Communities, Wellbeing and Public Safety.
Good evening. I'm the Cabinet Member for Culture, Heritage, Performance and the Local Plan, and I'm also Deputy Leader.
Martin, we can now hear you. Please introduce yourself and then go on to mute. Okay, can someone just make sure we don't get any feedback? But we have got. We don't get any feedback. We've got Martin Goss, Councillor for Waste, Environment and Transport on the line, but having some. Martin Goss, Councillor for Waste, Environment and Transport. Okay, we should be able to move on. If I can go to the officers now, Adrian Pritchard, Andrew Weavers and Richard Clifford. Please introduce yourselves and your title.
Adrian Pritchard, Chief Executive and Head of Paid Service.
Andrew Weavers, Monitoring Officer.
Richard Clifford, Lead Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you all. Good to have you here, and thank you, Richard, in particular, who makes the meeting run smoothly, providing everyone's IT is going. So the provisions in the Constitution around the timing of breaks will apply to this meeting. So Cabinet members, let me know if you are leaving for a break. Put your screen on to mute and your sound on to mute too. Otherwise, we will end at 8 for a break when it's suitable. Just to introduce the Cabinet in terms of the work that it does, this is for the benefit of the members of the public. The Cabinet is the main executive body of the Council. It's responsible for the day-to-day decision-making on all of the Council's services and also makes recommendations to full Council on major policy issues and on the Council's budget. The Cabinet is made up of 7 councillors, each of whom is responsible for a particular range of services, and they've introduced themselves and their departments that they cover. Moving on, urgent items, I believe we have none. Can I check, Richard, do we have any urgent items?
There are no urgent items, Chairman.
Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Can I invite Cabinet members to declare any relevant interests in the agenda items this evening, please? Okay, I see a few shakes of the head and no indications, so not for this evening. Moving on, item 4, the minutes of the last meeting. I invite Cabinet to approve the minutes of the meeting from the 14th of October 2020. I would just hope that you can nod or say that you agree with those. I see nods. Excellent. Thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we agree those minutes. Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, which is have your say, which is where we invite members of the public to come along. In case they are unable to connect, we take a script from them that we can read out. But I think we have 2 members of the public here who are connected and able to speak. So I'll go first of all to Alan Short, and then I'll invite responses from Cabinet members as best as possible to your questions, Alan. So good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to say I fully support the Council in the difficult tasks that they've currently got dealing with the coronavirus and the impacts that's having on the budget. Firstly, I'd like to talk about the decision that the Cabinet made on the 3rd of June. The decision was not to appropriate the land next to Queen Street. It was merely for an officer and a portfolio holder to negotiate with the rights of way holders. However, within weeks before the Council had actually taken a further decision, an announcement was made by Amphora Holdings to appropriate the land. And we were given 2 weeks to comment. That seemed to be considerably contrary to the decision that was made at the 3rd of June Cabinet meeting. Additionally, objections were made. I know I made one, I know several other people who made them, but the Council have refused to publish those objections, and I do not understand why they are doing so. They could redact sensitive information, but they're not publishing them. Neither are they going to make them available to ward councils except as a summary after they've made their final decision. The next question concerns the mayor-making meeting and how that was able to go ahead, given that at the time we were bound by the rule of 6. I was particularly concerned, seeing as our new mayor has previously been advised to shield. And finally, I do not understand why a majority of the Cabinet decided to nominate Tim Young as Deputy Mayor when he has clearly lost the confidence of the whole of his group on the Council, as at the mayor-making, it also seemed he'd lost the support of many of the other councillors. So why did the Liberal Democrats on the Cabinet vote to second his nomination?
Thank you, Alan. I'll invite Councillor King to come in on the Queen Street alumni representation, and then I'll decide if we can come back on the others. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Alan. It's good to see you rather than just email you, have an exchange. And really, I'd like to talk, if I may, I'll answer your questions as best I can for those who are not involved in this. You and I have had exchanges on this, or I have with colleagues who hold a similar view about the development and the alternatives in an ideal world, at least, and how we've handled this as a council, and why we have. Even this evening, I was sharing information which I think has gone to you about some of the benefits of the scheme, and I think that's the context which I will, if you allow me to, just briefly come back to. But to your points around appropriation timelines and objections, we have gone back to you, but the essence for me is this, that what we should do as a local authority is follow guidance for our officers unless it just looks plain wrong, and test that as we go, And absolutely, I take the point, have as open a process as is possible. But that is always taking a judgment about what is possible in circumstances where there are boundaries. There are boundaries that are both commercial and about information and its ownership. In days of GDPR, that is a higher boundary, a higher fence than it ever has been before. And I have to say, personally, I find it often frustrating. So I do know that our approach is to share what we can. But as I say, I do know that it's also one that has to accept the rights of individuals to their data and not to pick and choose what we can or we can't publish or share with others. The promises made have been to share what we can when we can, and that still stands. I will say to you, I will go back and revisit this. I also will revisit a question that you haven't raised tonight, but is in the air, which is this balance of advantage and disadvantage of having this development. For those who are absolutely opposed to this, nothing at all will ever remedy the loss that they feel, and I have respect for that. It's a position that's deeply held. I have one which, respectful of that position, is that this is an extraordinarily opportune moment. However painful it will be and how much it may divide, at a time when there is economic weakness across the nation and across the borough, like elsewhere, to have inward investment. Many towns, many boroughs will give their right arm, frankly, for it. And you and I had exchanges about those benefits. I think we might agree they are probably some million a year in terms of economic footfall in the town. They are undoubtedly going to bring jobs, including short-term jobs and movement of people into the town with a benefit. And then there is, as I say, there are benefits that follow of information on which I've shared with you or shared through another to you today. So I think there is a case for always going back and look, just have a cross-check. This is such a long drawn-out process to see whether the advice is the same, to see whether the information that we've shared as an authority, I believe, as somebody with a commercial background, I know you have one as well, has been shared alive to those commercial boundaries, but has been shared when it can be, to see whether we can collate it and refresh the understanding of those outside. I will go back to that. That's my promise. I don't think there's much else I can say beyond what I've said tonight or said before in correspondence or otherwise. We're trying to do our best to strike that balance between the need to know the rights of individuals and commercial interests of the parties. But I will go back and see what we could say or what we could say again.
Thank you, David. That's really helpful. On the matter of the mayoralty, I'll go to one of our former mayors. We have two on the cabinet, Councillor Teresa Higgins, and then I'll go to Adrian Pritchard as the head of paid service and CEO of the council, and ask about the COVID safe. Head of paid service CEO. Martin, can you mute, please?
Thank you very much, Mark, for allowing me to speak. Yeah, just to say that to be mayor is a great privilege in this borough. And in the past, there's been different ways that you could get to be mayor, but nowadays there is a protocol, and it is regardless of political issues and political parties. It is whoever's been the longest serving councillor who has not been mayor is next in line. And having had that protocol set in the last few years, it now turns out that it's Councillor Tim Young's turn to be mayor. Now, I know in the past that people have complained about his attitude and what have you, but I think he's understood the responsibilities for it, which is why our group, the Liberal Democrats, voted for him to become the mayor. It is done on service. It is done on service to this borough, which is a great borough, and I will welcome him as a long-standing councillor, and he'll then be mayor, and he'll be a very proud mayor of this borough. And I was very pleased to be mayor of this borough. I had a fantastic time. It is a great privilege, and I know Councillor Julie Young had a great time as being mayor. So let's honour the protocol, and let's thank our long-serving councillors for their work in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you for your service. Both you and Councillor Young did an excellent job that I think others will struggle to live up to. So both brilliant examples. Thank you. I'll just move to Adrian Pritchard, please, just to explain how we made those meetings safe and how you can explain the protocols we use. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, Mr. Short. Just to say that we had 3 groups of 2 people who were each in their family bubbles. So we had the then Mayor and his support. We had the Deputy Mayor who became the Mayor with his support. And we had Councillor Tim Young who became Deputy Mayor with his support. That makes 6 in total. And therefore they were each in their family bubbles. They were all kept 2 meters apart in the layout of the grand jury room. And what we did have then was 3 officers, myself, the head of monitoring, and the lead democratic services officer. And that's perfectly allowed under the fact that it was a business meeting and officers were allowed to be there. Again, we kept 2 meters apart. So there are 9 of us in the room, 3 family bubbles of 2 and 3 officers, all of whom kept 2 meters apart throughout the whole of the process. We are very satisfied that we did conduct that mayor making ceremony and that it was a COVID secure business meeting as far as we're concerned. And we're very clear about that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and everyone has been absolutely healthy since. So you did the right measures, right things to make that happen. Actually, I've had many correspondents to say that we should have had a bigger meeting, but we made it absolutely clear it would be the minimal possible in the most safest way possible, widely spread, and to not invite any other people along to that meeting. So we took that balance, which was more in the safe camp, to absolutely minimize as much as possible, have no more than the number that we just discussed. And I would reaffirm the point about service. And Councillor King has explained the issue of Queen Street, so I think that's everything we could explain to you tonight. Mr. Short, is there anything else you want to say, Alan?
Dave and I or Dave knows my views on the benefits of the development, and I don't wish to roll back on that. All I'm saying is that appropriation of the land is a very, very serious decision to take, and it should be being taken by the councillors, by the cabinet, as a decision that they made. This is being taken not by them at all, because it's quite clear that the cabinet never decided on that decision. In terms of if people's objections to planning can be published, then their objections to appropriation can also be published, redacted in the normal way. So we do not understand, I do not understand why that's made. And as to Tim Young, when Tim Young was leader of the Labour group, a member of the Labour group opposed the adoption of a Liberal Democrat mayor in 2000. This cannot have been done without Tim Young's own agreement to that attack being made. So it pains me that that could go through at the time against the way that things go. So okay. Why should we respect Tim Young? The mayor has to be somebody who is respected by the town. And
that's your minute. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. I do understand your points. I think you asked about why the Liberal Democrats supported. We're not taking an issue back from 2000. We haven't played party politics. Councillor Higgins absolutely explained. We took away the politics and looked at the sheer sort of formula almost in place that looks at service and looks at order of politics. That's why we have not then brought any other issues into this. And we're very supportive of every councillor on this council until anything means that they have to be brought up in front of the questions, in front of the governance committee, but that has not happened, and we therefore went forward with the etiquette that's in place. But thank you. I'll move on to Nick Chilvers, who's come this evening. So over to you, Nick.
Oh, good evening. Thank you, Leader. The heading, Don't Rock the Boat. Since February and Janet, I've exercised by walking around every corner of the borough, urban and rural, shabby and chic, and past a lot of construction sites. open our eyes. The scale of the town growth can't be appreciated from an armchair. And we've seen a huge amount of nice properties with expensive cars on the front. Obviously, they've got deep pockets and good for them. So we wonder, where's all the money going? Pre-COVID, why hasn't the town been doing better? It can't all be going online. So what are the barriers? So when COVID recedes, I'd urge you to reach out to the newbies, the ones with money, and entice them into the town. Are they likely to catch a bus to shop the centre? Probably not. Why? Why would they, with at least 30,000 quid's worth of cars to use on their front? And time can be an issue. So is managing kids on a trip. So is carrying shopping. Maybe they prefer their own company, a lack of convenient bus stop, or even, in a lot of cases, a service. Now, a lot of families do cycle for leisure and exercise, but unlikely to for the town centre or destination shoppings or flexible work patterns. The park and ride, frankly, isn't much good to anybody south of the river either. Being lectured by a councillor on a photo shoot doesn't go down well when they don't know individual circumstances. Of course, more should opt for the alternative method of transport if they can. And a lot of arguments for not leaving their cars at home, and the car park prices don't stand scrutiny. But remember, when it comes to one's pride and joy, logic goes out the window. If people are made to feel guilty or sense barriers, they'll simply turn the wheel in the other direction. Messages aren't exactly, well, we want your money but not your car, but they are the signals going out. Look after the town centre traders you've got, because there isn't a queue to replace them. Whilst the centre one day morphs into an experience destination, whatever that is, you'll still have to entice people in. And to thrive, the town needs to fill those car parks. You need the spending power from the new residents, not just relying on the same quarters of Colchester. I'm afraid appealing to conscience and loyalty won't cut it with them either. Nudging behaviour change takes a long time. Be careful not to drive away shoppers and businesses. I urge you and Essex County Council to facilitate first, not frustrate. Keep that welcome sign flashing. Hold off rocking the boat and sinking the good ships, High Street and Enterprise, until you see land. We've been attacked by COVID on one side. Don't stymie mobility as well. Remember, all these kids protesting about climate change will eventually buy a car themselves for independence and mobility. The other thing to remember is
time, Chairman.
And they have a choice. Yes, I got the 3 minutes.
You can always come back at the end with the 1 minute. I think some of that is most relevant to Councillor King again, so he's earning his money tonight. So over to you, David, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Mr. Chilvers. Thank you, Nick. That I always like listening to you. You've got a pithy sense of purpose to what you put to us as challenge. And let me just walk through that and see if I can answer some of those observations. I mean, starting at the end, if I may, you're absolutely right. We're not. It would be foolish too, and we're certainly not trying to frustrate. What we want to do is facilitate, but the facilitation has to be one that works for the longer term. So there is economic and other study evidence which shows that good towns are ones which do have an environment that people find attractive. That's not just public realm, it's sort of green space and its quality of the air. And in that mix is the journey into that town for those who live some miles away. And as a cyclist who's been knocked off by a car, I quite like it if it was a bit safer to try and get into town for those of us who do want to use something other than the car. But the car is absolutely central for the great majority of people, and it would be foolish to say otherwise. There is no anti-car policy. There is no closure of car parks. There is a graduated and thoughtful parking policy, which will come on later in the agenda, which is trying to reconcile and balance the many objectives. But the town being competitive, the town being attractive, and the town doing well in the longer run, all of those are in our mind. we're working with business, we're working with the bid that represents them. We're putting money, even though it's tough for us as a council at the moment, we're putting extra money into schemes which will help them market, display, show the best of themselves. And as I say, we're trying to work thoughtfully towards a future where it'll be rather easier and certainly safer to cycle and walk into Colchester. And I do think that is the way ahead. And as I say, evidence elsewhere suggests that economically that can bring a benefit. But I do thank you for the remarks, and I know they come from a love of your town and an awareness of the concerns that people have. And we're going to have to listen, keep listening, try and use the available space in the town. It is the shape it is, try and use it well. And if we share it out rather differently, try to take account of the impacts that will make and leave the town the better for it. 1 or 2 years on, it will be easier. Once investments have been made by the county, it will be easier to cycle. It'll be safer to cycle. It'll be easier and more pleasant to walk and cycle into town. And it will be a rather greener place. And some of that is a direct relationship of our work with business in the town who know that it is, whether the language is easy or not, it is about experience. It is about people enjoying coming into a town centre rather than always about the shopping they may get there. That's enough from me, but thank you very much for bringing your thoughts to us.
Thank you, David. Hopefully that helps. Nick, any final comments?
Yes, just to say, look, I don't want to sound like a climate denier, and I know that the direction is right, but the borough and the county do need to sort out some more road capacity and the bus services out. You can't just expect people as families to troll in miles as the estates are getting further and further from town. There's far less connectivity, not only in terms of getting from A to B, but in terms of they having a sense of belonging to the centre. And basically, I think people turn up, close the door and forget about the centre of Colchester because it's not relevant, they can't get there. But or it's not easy. But there we are, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfectly timed. We are trying our best, as David says, to find that balance between moving forward in a greener way, working more closely in a better relationship with the county council than we have done in the past, to try and sort out our transport network and to do it in a green way. But secondly, again, our relationship with the bid and with businesses is better than it has been before. So we're working with them to make sure we invest in the town. And with the town deal, that definitely is going to be a stimulus that will help us through the recovery, I hope. Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of those speakers. I now have Councillor Scordis, I believe, up next. So yes, over to you, Lee.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair. There's two parts to my have your say. The first is regarding Councillor Goss's portfolio. Just an issue with delivering the recycling equipment. This is kind of my county hat on. In Zone 6, they are delivering it within a couple of hours when people order it, but Zone 5 have been taking 5 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer, to deliver recycling equipment. And I understand that demand may be higher, but if demand is triple what it is in Zone 6, it should take 3 days, not 6 weeks. So I think there's clearly an issue there. And I do think Zone 5 need to talk to Zone 6 about how they are achieving this, as there are clear issues. So that's the first point. Second one is on Paxman's. So after our quite a vivid debate at full council, unfortunately, a few days later, Paxman said that they were going to, unfortunately, close doors likely end of this year and moving into next year. And I was wondering, as we talked so much about green energy and the need to get green energy into the town, what steps us as a council could take to get green companies to come to Colchester and make us, again, a kind of hub of innovation that we were under Paxman. So now we can be a hub on green energy. So seeing what work can be done. That might come more under Councillor King. But that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Lee. Martin, could you mute, please? So two things, and I will pass effectively to the relevant portfolio holders. That'll be Martin Goss and then to David King. So on your last point, I would say that revolves around economic growth work that, yes, Councillor King is doing on our behalf with other councils as well in the northeast of Essex to make sure we bring and attract the best skills, technology and workforce and employers. But also some of the work we will do, Lee, on the committee that I chair, the Environment and Sustainability Committee, because in our terms of reference, we've talked about being a beacon, being a leader in our borough, but being a leader in our region, and making sure we speak to government, speak to big private sector providers, and make sure we get our story out there about how we are one of the best and greenest councils in the country, and how we do welcome initiatives and schemes, whether they be backed by our money, backed in part by government, or through a private public initiative. But we will be there at the forefront of any initiative that comes forward. And absolutely, I'd like to see how we could, through that committee, do something that talks about economic and industrial strategy to encourage green industries. I'll just go to David to finish off that point about economics, and then I'll move to Councillor Goss on the operational point you make about recycling. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Lee. The loss of Paxman's, or its expected loss of Paxman's, is a body blow to many who remember its past glories, and you've spoken up for that, as had many others who know the site well and know that part of town and know that history. The future to which you touch on is going to be different. It's an obvious thing to say. So then it's, what do we do? What can we do in that context? You know, live to the jobs that are here, the strengths that we do have. What can we do to add to them, and what can we do to mitigate our weaknesses? And the answer is, as a local authority, we can do something. We can do something, particularly if we work with our counterpart local authorities, and if we continue, as we have in recent years, to be well received in Whitehall when it comes to the rounds of bidding and the opportunities that can come by being well placed and well regarded. So it's a mixture of investment and support, and I suspect a measure of marketing as the world around us changes. And it does link to the earlier remarks, really, about destination Colchester. We have to remain an attractive place to invest. We have to be a place where people know their investments will be welcomed, whether it's large or whether it's small. And that's part of the way in which we're working now, to look at how we might market ourselves alive to changing business practice and changing working environments. There's not much more that can be said now than that. We're looking at skills, business support, marketing, and doing what we can with what we've got. We've got particular strengths, cultural, creative, and digital, but we've got a town centre and a borough that relies upon hundreds, if not thousands, of small and medium businesses, and their strengths and their successes depend on the context. We're going to have to hang on tight, do what we can, continue to put our strengths to work in support of those who are giving jobs and employment for others. But there is no big ticket item that any of us can see at the moment. This is going to be work across the board to make the environment one that attracts others.
Thank you, David. I'll move on quickly to Martin. The specific operational issues, please, Martin.
Yeah, I've already been in touch with Rory Doyle, who's the head of service, and he's going to investigate your concerns about the length of time. In practice, that shouldn't happen because everything goes on to a work scheduling system that actually ensures that stuff as it gets near its due date will be flagged up so that it doesn't pass its due date, because the SLA for delivering plastic sacks and recycling equipment is 3 weeks, a maximum of 3 weeks. So we will obviously pick that up and look at it, and we'll get back to you with some facts on that later.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, moving on. I have Councillor Paul Dundas down to speak. Paul, I think you're speaking on a number of items. Did you want to speak at the agenda items as they come?
I'm happy to speak now and cover them all off, if that's okay with you, because I've got some general comments which cut across 3 or 4 items. If you'll indulge me to speak now and get it out of the way, I'm happy with that. It's your choice.
I'm happy for you to fire off.
Thank you very much.
We're taking.
I think my first comment is probably regarding item, I think it's 9.3, which is the capital expenditure report. In paragraph 4.2, there's £800,000 being allocated more to Northern Sports Park. It's described in the Cabinet Papers as increased investment to ensure the scheme is delivered in full, taking account of the impacts of COVID-19 and lockdown. I just think, and I do appreciate if we delve elsewhere in other papers that there is a little bit more information. But I think for an expenditure of £800,000 of public money, that's a rather vague statement, and it's a rather difficult statement for the Cabinet to make a proper decision on. So I think when you come to consider that item, I think you need to state clearly exactly what that money is for and what extra benefits it will bring for the residents of Colchester. Furthermore, it's coming out of another scheme, so I think equally when taking the decision or when you take your vote, you need to state clearly what is being lost from the Southern Gateway by taking that £800,000. You know, I just think it's a large amount of money to just have a very short sentence vaguely saying about COVID-19, you know, covers a multitude of sins. Similarly, in that item, we talk about the 726,000 and the 100,000 for the vehicle replacements and EV charging points, and then that goes on to be discussed in more detail in item 11.1. I do fully endorse and generally agree with the policy moving towards a hybrid and or electric fleet. I think it's a sensible thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it ties in with our stated aims very well. My concerns perhaps are more about the fact that, well, twofold really. Firstly, in paragraph 5.1, we talk about the fact that some of this fleet is used by the helpline service. Now that is obviously run by Amphora, which is a separate commercial company. So I suppose my first question is, why is CBC making the purchase for a separate commercial company? Now, I suspect the answer may be that sometimes the vehicles have mixed use or joint use, and maybe it makes sense to utilise CBC purchasing power when obtaining for procurement reasons. But really, can we clarify, as far as the helpline use is concerned, whether CBC are then selling them on to Amphora? Are they subleasing them, or are they charging on a per mile basis? And then the question is, at what rates and to what commercial equivalents have they been benchmarked to ensure a correct commercial rate is being charged? Because otherwise it's nonsensical saying that Amphora make money out of helpline if they're not paying the full commercial rate for their vehicles. Also in that, I assume that if we are doing the procurement for them, we're making an administration charge for them being able to use our procurement facilities, just as we would any other commercial company. And I think on the actual choice of vehicles, I mean, there's a lot of talk about buying them, and generally I agree with buying things instead of leasing them. Leasing, I think, can be very expensive because the leasing company at the end of the day is trying to make a profit out of us. So why not us have that money? But my concern with electric vehicles is they are at the very beginning of their development. If you sort of look behind me, I've got a shelf up there full of HD DVDs, and I've got a Windows phone sitting on my desk. This is what happens when you go in very early on with new technology. So I do think we should give a very free hand and very seriously consider, at least with the electric vehicles, hybrid is slightly different, looking at a lease on them. I think in 6 or 7 years' time, when we will still be using those vehicles, they will be very out of date. I think we also have to consider about the maintenance cost. We do not know what the long-term maintenance cost of electric vehicles is, because apart from a few Teslas, which are very expensive, there's no experience of them. If you have a failed battery or the battery degrades, so you're not getting the same range, you could be writing that vehicle off in 5 years' time. Even with the hybrids, if you looked in the press over the weekend, there's a problem with the very large German car manufacturers. Hybrids going wrong 3.5 years, so 6 months outside of warranty, costing £10,000 to repair.
Chairman, that's time.
Sorry, yeah, I shall finish there.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Richard. Lots to cover there, most of which I think will be most appropriate, as you say yourself, when we bring it up when talking about the matters in particular. I would invite anyone who wants to come in at that point, but we will talk about, first of all, the Northern Gateway monies, talk about that, how it's being spent and transferred between the different projects, and assure you of that. But also on the EV charging points and the use of the cars, we are very clear in our workings with Amphora. Amphora is there in a general sense to deliver us a dividend, to pay back money, but actually there's very complicated transactions that happen between us and Amphora in terms of recharging, work that is done between the two, looking at different costs. So we will have to explain that to you. I think it's clear that we do make sure everything we do benefits the borough and benefits the residents. So I'm happy to, when we get to that report, explain how that works as well. Are there any cabinet members who want to come in on that?
Could I?
Okay, David, quickly, please.
I'd like just to sort of address the point of principle, Paul, and sort of, which is that you've asked a complex question, and to do that well, I'll need to come back to you. But I will address, while we're on it, the specifics that we have had a number of related delays and challenges up at Northern Gateway. They're described in summary. They're taken through governance and audit, amongst other places, for a detail of review. They'll be examined again before the end of the year. We do, as you will know, have several ways and several places in which capital is declared and assessed and progress reported as it should be and challenged as it can be. This is primarily about budget expenditure rather than, as I say, in itself a report on the detail of works. So my response now is to say, of course we can and we will give it to you. When we get to the item, I'll run you through 2 or 3 of the specifics, if you can hang on that long to that. But there is a point of principle about where we're best to address this, but I can take that off with you offline and walk you through that as well.
Thank you, David, that's helpful. So we will answer in more detail some of those questions as we go forward. Thank you. I think we now move to Councillor Oxford, please. Gerard, are you there?
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Leader. Yes, I am. So I have a few points because I'm unable to stay for the rest of the meeting. So a couple of points here. One is in relation to the Mill Road site and the boulevard. There we've got a problem has come to light, that the pipe runs underneath where the boulevard is going to come out in Mill Road, when it was surveyed, didn't show up that the pipes will mean that the boulevard has got to be raised between 1 and 2 meters higher. And that impacts what we're trying to do in relation to the rugby club building, which we're hoping to be a community centre. So you're going to have, instead of it being level coming out through the doors, you're now going to have 1 metre or 2 rise up to the boulevard, which is not straightforward. And I wonder why the survey did not show that up in the first instance. The second item is regarding parking. My wife and I have tried getting into town a few times, and it's definitely getting more difficult to access the town. You know, you've got cycle lanes with nobody on them. Well, I certainly haven't seen them. 5 times I've tried, and there haven't been a single person using the cycle lanes down by North Station, etc. And also about the parking. Many disabled people rely on their vehicles to go and be able to shop. they don't have the luxury of being able to walk or cycle, many of them. They've also had their benefits cut in recent years, and their now proposal for them to pay to park as well. This is a further disincentive for them to come into town and shop, and it's the only mechanism they've got to come in and do it. The third one is heritage. You're talking about that later on this evening. There is no mention in the document from what I've read, and please correct me if I'm wrong and I've missed it, that there's no reference to the fact that we were Britain's first city and the original capital. And I think when we're talking about heritage, we should at least include that. I know that some of our partners, when they're promoting the town, use first city and so on and so forth. So I just thought that should go into it as well. I'll quit while I'm ahead, because the other two items I was going to talk about, as you quite rightly said to me earlier today, should be aimed at county, so I won't bother you with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. I appreciate that. That issue to do with e-scooters, speaking to the county council on that pilot. I think they're updating us on what money is going to be put into where, so you definitely get more detail from them. Okay, on the boulevard in particular, that's Councillor Higgins's portfolio. I'll go to her, and if you want to refer to an officer, I think Ian Vipon would be the appropriate officer. So Teresa, I'll go to you on that first, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I think, Councillor Oxford, you've already been briefed on it, the fact that sometimes when surveys take place, you don't always find all the problems at the same time. However, it will not affect the changing of the former rugby club building to a community centre. It will be, the difference in levels will be incorporated so that there will be proper access levels for it. And with any luck, you'll probably get a brand new building, as that will be the best thing, because it will be completely DDA compliant. You'll have access to all the levels, and the different levels outside will be incorporated in the new build. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins, and I'm sure you'll keep ward councillors updated on that as well, please. Secondly, over to you, Mike, about parking in particular. Could you come back and respond on those questions, please?
Yeah, sure. Gerald was talking about blue badge parking and on disabled parking. They get 3 hours free parking when they're allowed to park anywhere. There's always been the case that they stay longer than they pay anyway. Nothing's really changed in that respect. I don't understand where he's come from. If he's got it from the Gazette report, I suggest that he probably actually asked us. We actually know what we're talking about. Disappointed with the Gazette report. It's very negative and one-sided, as it always is. But yeah, I don't really understand that. And the other issues of the cycle lanes, they are quite used regularly. I live around the area in North Station Road, and there's quite a few there. But we should have more, really. There's too many cars on the road. But I'll save a lot more for later on. So I hope that answers your question, Gerald, about disabled parking.
Gerard, if there is a further issue on disabled parking that we didn't pick up on, please do let us know and speak to Mike.
Yeah, we read the report, and I thought it said in there, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I thought it said they were considering charging for disabled parking in the car parks. So that's why I've raised it. If I'm wrong, then I'm sorry.
I don't think that has been taken up at all. Mike, can you just confirm, please? That's not what we're doing.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. It doesn't make any sense. Actually, we probably want to go the other way, that we want to offer longer hours for disabled people in car parks, because they need longer hours to unload wheelchairs and to load wheelchairs in. That 3 hours they get on the street, some of it's taken up by the loading and unloading. So we would go the other way. So I think it just, we'll double check, but I think it's the case of if they stay over the time, they'll get charged a bit more. But Richard Walker's on the doing a presentation today on the parking. We'll be able to clarify with Richard.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That's a bit clearer. Thank you. Okay, I think that draws to a close the Have Your Say speaker items. I feel there's no others there. And I'll just apologise now if I'm a bit distracted at all. I've family situations at the moment with someone quite unwell, so I'm not my most joyful as usual, but we'll move on and hopefully the meeting will run smoothly. So moving on to item 6, decisions referred to the scrutiny panel. We have none. Can you please confirm, Richard?
That's right, Chairman. There aren't any.
Thank you. And then we move on to the main substantial items. Item 7, first we have the review of the management agreement from Colchester Borough Homes. And we have Dirk Patterson, Chair of Colchester Borough Homes, here this evening, as well as Gareth Mitchell, the Chief Executive of Colchester Borough Homes, who we meet regularly, reporting to us how the progress of CBH is doing in the times of COVID in particular. So I welcome both of you this evening, Dirk and Gareth, and I will move to Adam to help introduce this item, please.
Thank you very much, Leader, and it is great to have both Gareth Mitchell and Dirk Patterson with us this evening. We've got a really important decision in front of us tonight, and I think it demonstrates our continued commitment as a council to council housing and our commitment to Colchester Borough Homes as well. We've got some slides that I hope one of the Democratic Services officers will be able to put up. Just some background for those people that don't know. Colchester Borough Homes was set up by the council in 2003, and they are our arm's length management organisation. They're a wholly owned company that the council owns, and they manage our housing services, our corporate buildings. They deliver a number of our legal homelessness responsibilities, and they maintain our housing estate as well. The current agreement that we have with Colchester Borough Homes runs until 2023, and at this time we have the opportunity to look at continuing with that or extending the agreement. And so for a number of months now, we've been reviewing the decision, and the review has evaluated how that agreement has been operating, looking at cost and value for money, performance, the support of an alignment to the council's strategic objectives, the scheme of delegation, financial arrangements, and the delivery of service level agreements. This has been a really rigorous process conducted by the council client team, and I'd like to thank Colchester Borough Homes executive leadership team and their staff for engaging thoroughly in this process too. The process also included tenant engagement carried out independently by the Tenant Participation Advisory Service, TPAS, who are well respected at doing that sort of work in the housing field. And we also held 2 councillor workshops, and I'd like to thank all of those that took part in this process and that has got us to this position. If we could move to the next slide, please. This slide shows the overall trajectory of value for money performance over the last 7 years versus other local authorities and other arm's length management organisations. The chart shows cost versus performance, and there are 4 coloured boxes representing the 4 different scenarios for the services measured. Top left is poor performance, high cost, moving to bottom right, which is relatively good performance and low cost. And each of the blue dots is one of the benchmark services that Colchester Borough Homes delivers for us. And that includes rent collection, tenancy management, customer services, amongst others. And I think what you can really see from the charts is the progress that's been made over that period of time, meaning that the services have improved in their value for money when compared to other peers. And in fact, each of the services benchmark is either in or on the edge of the green good performance low cost box. If we can move to the next slide, please. So this slide focuses on service performance versus peers in the east of England. And each of the charts shows the performance of key services over a 7-year period again. Each number on the chart is a different year. Where the blue line is Colchester Borough Homes performance, and the orange is the median for the eastern region. And you'll see in the top left corner, we've got the percentage of rent collected, and you can see that in recent years, Colchester Borough Homes has consistently performed better than their peers, and the improvement gap is actually increasing. Top right, you'll see the average days to complete a repair, and it's also consistently better than their peers. A lower number here means it takes less time to complete repairs, and it's always been in that 6 to 7 day period. Bottom left is the empty property turnaround time or voids time. And here you'll see that perhaps performance has not been as well as peers in the first 3 years. Bettered the average in year 4, but then slipped back to being 2.2 days longer on average to turn empty properties around. And this has been an area of challenge in recent years, but in the last year, actually in 1920, Colchester Borough Homes did put in considerable effort into a service improvement plan, and this has already delivered results. Both organisations know that the challenge here is to sustain that performance on this measure. And finally, bottom right is customer satisfaction, which is measured by the Survey of Tenants and Residents, the STAR survey. Here you can see that although customer satisfaction levels have been consistently in the early to mid 80s, which is good, they have been lower than the regional average, something that prompted the creation of the Colchester Borough Homes customer plan in 2018. And you can see that in fact, in this case, the regional median has dropped to their level in 2018-19, but at a really credible level of 83% satisfaction with the service. If we move on to the next slide, having looked at cost and performance in the first slide and performance in the second, this last slide shows cost position over the period presented in bar charts. The yellow and orange bars relate to the repairs and void services, and the blue bars relate to housing management. Starting with repairs and voids, in each year the yellow bar shows the cost of the Colchester Borough Home service provided to tenants, and the orange part of the bar is the additional cost of the average repair service delivered by other housing providers in the east of England. The orange is therefore the amount of money that the council saves each year in its housing revenue account, which funds our whole housing operations versus providers in the rest of the region. And similarly on housing management, the light blue at the bottom shows the Colchester Borough Homes performance, and the dark blue part at the top is the additional cost of the average housing management service in the east. If you add the value of those savings over the last 7 years, this means that as a council, we've spent nearly £16 million less on providing repairs, voids and housing management services than the average provider in the region. And I think this gives a really clear, strong message about the low cost base which Colchester Borough Homes deliver our housing services. And I think these slides taken together paint a picture of improved performance since the last management agreement was signed in 2013, and that Colchester Borough Homes have continued to deliver on our behalf. If we move to the final slide, because I wanted just to touch a little bit on what Colchester Borough Homes have delivered in the last year in terms of COVID response, and they really have been an integral part of how we've responded as a community. So 59 people have been accommodated following the government guidance to get everybody in to control the spread of COVID-19, and 43 people have subsequently been rehoused into permanent accommodation. And that team is still working with people right now to ensure that we tackle homelessness and that we tackle rough sleeping. And what we've been doing in Colchester has been acknowledged by government as being an example of best practice. Colchester Borough Homes made over 4,700 calls in the first 3 weeks of lockdown to some of our most vulnerable tenants, and have continued to stay in contact with tenants as the year has gone on as well, and made a number of referrals to community partners to provide continued support to people. They instituted a range of really proactive measures as well around our sheltered housing schemes to provide additional control measures to ensure that those residents who really are some of our most vulnerable people in the borough were able to maintain good health over the period as well. The antisocial behaviour team has continued to respond to tackle nuisance and antisocial behaviour, and we all know that that's been something that particularly increased in the first lockdown period, and I'd like to thank the team for the work that they've done. And Colchester Borough Homes continue to deliver emergency repairs throughout the lockdown period, and they have continued to maintain the gas safety checks and other safety checks that are vital to keep our tenants safe. And also another area of the work that Colchester Borough Homes delivers for the council is around our corporate estate and managing some of our construction projects as well. And one of the key ones right now is the Mercury Rising building project to redevelop the Mercury Theatre. And that continued to operate during the introduction of safety measures related to COVID-19, and it was the only Arts Council funded project in the UK to remain on site during lockdown. And I think that again is a real part of the skill set that Colchester Borough Homes has to deliver for us, and will really contribute to how we recover from COVID-19 as well. I suppose just finally, what I'd like to say is that since 2003, Colchester Borough Homes have provided an excellent service to the residents of Colchester. They've achieved excellent value for money and outstanding service results over the past few years, making Colchester an even better place to live. And I'd like us to extend the management agreement for a further 5 years. This would take the next scheduled review of the management agreement to 2026, with the end date of that agreement to 2028. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you, Adam. Very comprehensive, and I know that we've got Gareth and Dirk here. I'm happy to bring them in if they do want to speak and contribute briefly. I would just say, when I was part of the One Colchester task force addressing in a partnership way the first wave of COVID at its peak, to find out that CBH, Colchester Borough Homes, had made so many calls to so many vulnerable people in a proactive way was such a reassurance for us, and I think did help to improve people's well-being, and in some cases to save lives as well. So thank you, Gareth, Dirk and Adam, to your teams at Colchester Borough Homes, and I absolutely condone looking at the management agreement for another 5 years. And I appreciate the council and workshops as well, where we all asked thorough questions. And I think improvements have been made, and a pledge to be made over the next 5 years that will see us, the next paper in particular, how we environmentally improve the stock that we have as well. Are there any further comments?
Yeah, Councillor Young has indicated.
Councillor Young, Julie, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'd just like to add my congratulations to the board and team at Colchester Borough Homes, and to our cabinet member. And I think we've seen outstanding leadership in terms of housing provision in Colchester Borough Homes. And I just wanted to reflect back on the decision we made to set up Colchester Borough Homes. It was quite an arduous process at the time. And I know that there were people at the time that, had different opinions about whether we should do this or not. But I, having represented an area that has probably the highest amount of accommodation managed by Colchester Borough Homes in the Greenstone community, I really know how much the service is valued there by those residents. And when I think about the Decent Homes project, and back in the early days when we were putting in new kitchens, new bathrooms, new heating systems, new front doors even, and the difference that made to the residents' lives, I don't think we should underestimate the effect that has on quality of life. And I know you mentioned the One Colchester Group leader. What we do know in terms of health outcomes, having a decent home to live in is one of the most important things to actually ensure that our community is healthy. So good luck for the next period of Colchester Borough Homes management. But I think this is a really impressive report and we should welcome it.
Thank you, Julie. I completely wholeheartedly agree. I'm glad that we kept our stock, our council stock, under close management by Colchester Borough Homes. We are intrinsically linked. It is our stock. We work together hand in glove, and I want to say thank you again to the leadership with, I suppose, Dirk and Adam, fairly new in. Gareth's been there a while now, but it's definitely going from strength to strength, and the next 5 years that we are committing to tonight, I think, will be even more positive, providing the most basic tool for people to get on in life, which is a safe home, a warm home, and hopefully a greener home with the next paper that we're willing to pass. Are there any other comments? Dirk and Gareth, I'm sure if you want to, you'd raise your hand. If not, I'm happy to move on to the vote. Okay, thank you. We'll move to the vote then, Richard, for the first item this evening. Andrew, are you going to do the vote for us?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox.
For.
For. Councillor Goss.
For.
For. Councillor Higgins.
For.
For. Councillor King.
For.
For. Councillor Lilly.
For.
For. Councillor Young.
For.
For. And Councillor Corey.
For.
For. That's unanimous, Leader. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. We move on to the next item to do with housing, which is the Climate Emergency Response Housing Investment Programme update. So back to you, Councillor Fox, please.
Thank you very much, Leader, and I'm glad we have agreed the previous paper, because without having done that, some of the environmental proposals that we've got for the future would be hard to deliver without Colchester Borough Homes. So we're asking Cabinet to agree to £4.4 million of investment in council houses in the year ahead to deliver on our commitment to act on the climate emergency. Last year, the council declared a climate emergency, and this is part of our action to tackle the issue. Hundreds of properties across Colchester will benefit and improve the lives of those people living in these homes. Improvements to hundreds of council houses over the coming year will make them more energy efficient, produce less carbon, and make it cheaper for tenants to heat their homes. And some of the improvements that we're laying out in this paper to houses and to sheltered accommodation would include more efficient heating systems, wall insulation, boiler replacements, and installation of air source heat pumps. And this capital investment will make a real difference to the energy bills of our tenants as well, and make it easier and cheaper for them to heat their homes as well. And the investment of £4.4 million shouldn't be underestimated. It will also really contribute to the economic recovery from COVID-19, with opportunities for local contractors and new jobs. Just a little bit of background, the council's housing is better actually than most comparative stock, both regionally and nationally, having an average of a C rating energy certificate. However, the council housing stock is identified as the top producing carbon emitter from within the council. And in the portfolio of homes that we own, there are some older and poor performing homes that can be improved to make a significant difference that will contribute towards the council becoming carbon neutral by 2030. But as I've set out, more importantly, improve the quality of life and affordability of tenants in these homes. And really this is laying out a marker for us as a council as well. Next year we will be reviewing the asset management strategy and seeking to include a continuing commitment towards energy efficiency works over the longer period of time. And really, I think, building on the paper that we've just passed, I think it's important that we note that Colchester Borough Homes will manage the climate emergency response package of works as well. So I think this is a really important paper for us, setting out improvements to people's homes and tackling the climate emergency. And I'll ask my Cabinet colleagues to fully support it.
Thank you, Adam. I know you and I have discussed this a number of times. I'm absolutely up for this. It's one of the first steps on a big journey to get our housing stock to be up to scratch. And that will involve lots of innovative ways beyond what you've described in the paper, but looking at redevelopment in the years to come as well, to make top quality homes that are absolutely zero carbon emitting as well. Are there any comments from other members of Cabinet? I know we have discussed this. I think that's an old hand from Julie, unless...
No, it's a fresh one.
Oh, it's a fresh one. Okay, Julie, please.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to say, Leader, is this is a testament to our leadership on climate change. And whereas many councils across Essex got rid of their environmental sustainability officer, we've always kept going with that. And I think that's why we're getting papers like this, that we've resourced our continued work in that area. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting quite a few emails about nutrition of elderly people. And the claim is that people are having to make a choice between heating or eating. And I think these kind of approaches where we're insulating homes and putting in air heat source pumps and doing measures to make homes more environmentally sustainable will really help those people that are having to make those difficult choices. And at this time of year, we start to get casework around damp and stuff. And I know there is more work we need to do with some of these homes, and I really wholeheartedly support this paper.
Thank you, Julie. I think you're absolutely right to highlight our green leadership in this area with CBH, but also back at the council, the work we are doing to build the foundations of greener living across Colchester. This is just one part of that, and the report later on the electric vehicles is another part. So thank you. I see no other hands, so I'm happy to move to the vote on this paper, which I'm definitely going to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox.
For.
For. Councillor Goss.
For.
For. Councillor Higgins.
For.
For. Councillor King. I'll come back. Councillor Lilly.
For.
For. Councillor Young.
For.
For. Councillor Corey.
For.
For. Councillor King. Leader, that's agreed by a majority.
Thank you. And Mayor, I've lost Councillor King at the moment. Hopefully he will reconnect, especially when we get to the finance papers. Okay, item 8 is the next item, I believe. So Northern Gateway Heat Network Project and Finance Update. If I can move to Councillor Higgins, please, Teresa, to give us an update on this report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. This carries on with our green credentials. We were one of the very few councils to get the money from BIS to actually start this project in the first place. Now, like all projects, they have hiccups. There's always something that will go wrong, but it's on schedule to be finished eventually. However, but what I would like to do is to point out the positives of all this. And if people can look at 6.5 in the report, it gives out that all sorts of things that we're going to do with the heat network. And one of the main things is going to provide a microgrid, which will provide electricity for the 30% affordable homes that we're going to build up in that area. So this carries on from what we were doing in the last report, is that we're going to make electricity and heating cheaper for residents that we provide homes for. So Chairman, the report is as presented to you. There are bits in the confidential that we'll look at later on under Part B, but I present the report to you.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. And this goes in line with the green leadership we were just talking about. As you say, we are the only project out of the 10 or 11 across the country that are taking the full green route. And I'm happy that the project, as you update us, is on track and on speed and money. So it's going to come in at the right time. And I look forward to seeing, hopefully, an opening, possibly in times where we can meet again, where we see the work happening and we see the green technology happening and warming buildings and commercial buildings and homes. So thank you. I see no hands up for this. It's more of an update for us. Thank you for that. So I can move straight to the vote, please, that we can just acknowledge. Do we need to say for, or can we just say acknowledged on this? We need to agree. Yeah.
I think you could do this by acknowledgement, Leader.
Thank you. Do we need to agree any of the tenders, though? Is that something that needs agreement?
Yes, if you just do it by people just saying whether or not anyone's dissenting from the agreed recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any dissent? I think we're all happy with this. Thank you. So we agree to move ahead with that project. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we'll move to the next item, Colchester Community Stadium Limited. Now I'm hoping we've got Councillor Barlow on the call, because Councillor Barlow has been our representative on the board here, and we're talking about wrapping up this particular piece of governance, as that's the right way forward to save money and to focus on the governance of the stadium in the ways that are already set up. So this is avoiding some of the duplication. Councillor Barlow, are you there?
Yes, I am, Leader.
Thank you, Nick. Over to you.
Good evening. I'm just here to make a few comments. I'm not formally presenting the report. It's obviously down to the officers and the portfolio holder for that. But I've been the council's representative on the board of CCSL since 2018, and I think we should also note former Councillor Dominic Graham and the late Councillor Martin Hunt were my predecessors on there, going back to 2009. We set up the company back in 2009 when the stadium was built and opened as part of the management arrangements of it. And I think the key thing to look at here is it's paragraph 5.2 in the report, which states, it was originally one of the ways we envisaged the stadium developing was that there'd be many different companies and organisations using it, and we'd need an umbrella organisation to manage that process of liaising between the different companies and organisations. And that, however, the way it's developed has been a much more linear arrangement with the football club. There's still a lot of community involvement going on there. There's a lot of events happening in and around the stadium. You can go there, well, probably not so much now. Well, no, even now though, you can see them doing COVID testing in the car park. But it's been a very useful community asset. However, the way it's managed hasn't developed in the way we envisaged, and so the company, I think, the board of directors, which includes Mr. Vipond, as well as one of the council's representatives, have agreed that it's time to bring the company to an end and let there be a more direct relationship between the council and the football club to deal with that. It also saves us the cost of running the company, of paying the directors. There are ongoing costs of doing that, which originally were being met by some of the activities going on. I think now, when we are sort of looking to make savings wherever we can, it is a way we can make it. It's only a small saving, but every little helps at this point in time. And I think for the management of the stadium going forward, it's good to thank CCSL for what it's done. However, it's an organisation whose time has sort of been and gone, and it is now time to move on to new arrangements between the council and the club. So I'll leave it to you to discuss the report, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. It's really helpful that you've come along with your experience of the limited company up there and how it's worked. So I thank you for that, Nick. Councillor Higgins, do you want to add anything more on the report?
Not much more, just to say thank you to Councillor Barlow for his comments. I will just refer you to the recommendations and proceed that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we have discussed this and feel it is the best way forward at this time. And I think most of Cabinet do agree with that, but I just want to check if there's any other comments, which I can not see. So could we bring the recommendations up, please, Richard, and have a look at those and move to a vote on those. Okay, so there are the recommendations. Andrew, can we move to a vote on those, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox?
4.
4. Councillor Goss?
4.
4. Councillor Higgins?
4.
4. Councillor King?
4.
4. Councillor Lilly?
4.
4. Councillor Young?
4.
4. And Councillor Corey?
4.
4. That's unanimous, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to Nick, and thank you to Councillor Higgins as well. Excellent, thank you. Moving on to item 9, the Local Council Tax Support Scheme. I remember when this was in my portfolio, it's a very important part of the tax scheme locally, and I know that we provide a generous scheme to vulnerable residents. So I move to you, Councillor King, to explain more about this paper, please. So over to you, David.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mark. My apologies for loss of signal. Broadband's not good tonight. If I go, I know, Leader, that you will know the rest of the story. But here we go. As you've said, this is an important part in our annual cycle. And for the most obvious of reasons for anybody who knows the subject or glanced at the paper, bills are hard to pay, and they're harder to pay for some of our residents than for others. This is about a reduction in the council tax, which is a bill that has to be paid if services are to be provided, services that sometimes those same residents need. This helps over 9,000 of our residents. It may help materially more next year, given the circumstances in which we're in, the economic challenges, the risks of jobs and livelihoods and incomes. So over 9,000 more to come. It's one of the most generous schemes in Essex, as you've said. It's, I should say this, a tough call for this council, for this administration, given the huge financial pressure that we're suffering under as a result of the pandemic and loss of income and the increase in our costs. It's going to cost the council over £1 million, perhaps as much as 1.3 million, but it's been embedded into our decision making, our budget cycle forward, because the importance that we give, consistent with our strategic priorities, to help the most vulnerable. This will help the elderly and those most in need. Accordingly, I recommend the scheme in its present terms. This is about continuity of these arrangements, despite our financial pressures, to help those who are most in need and most vulnerable across the borough. And I recommend it to colleagues, and I recommend it accordingly to full council.
Thank you, David. And I know that you work closely with Jason Granger, who is on the call this evening for any questions. We all respect and admire Jason's work and his team with Sam and Leonie and the others who provide this support to residents, but also provide us support to understand these schemes, which are quite complex, but also doing work on other key areas to support benefits vulnerable people, and especially the business support payments and the COVID payments that have been coming in to support people while they are isolated. So thank you, Jason, for that work. Thank you again for this paper. Thank you, David, for explaining it. And are there any other Cabinet members who want to speak on this item? No, I think you've heard it from us before, and I want to again say that this is a scheme that supports the most vulnerable in our community, and we put money into it. We make sure that that is one of our top priorities. So we go out of our way to put more money into this scheme to support people to contribute to their tax locally when paying their council tax. So thank you. I'll move straight to the vote then. Andrew Weavers, please.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
A great scheme. 4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. Councillor Corey.
4.
4. Thank you, Leader. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Andrew. Moving on to item 9, 2 little I's, officer pay policy. I move straight to Councillor King for this one, please. David. David, are you still connected? You may be muted.
Thank you, Leader. Apologies, I'm back with you. Officer pay policy, citing riveting subject, particularly for those who are being paid, but it's been a cause of dissension at times, which is why over the years we've moved to a statutory duty to publish what we do, like others, on pay. In the interest of transparency, this local authority goes beyond the obligation. We publish full pay information on those employed by the council. What I will do is draw out some of the points which are often of interest, starting with senior staff and also on an issue that is context for our staff, which is government proposals or government changes on exit and pensions. Apologies for the clock. Senior staff first. I've asked for checks to be run, and the paper includes a pay multiplier, which is part of the obligation to sort of show where our chief officer stands compared to his counterparts. Our chief officer, our executive director salaries are broadly in line or are lower than their peers. The chief officer pay multiple is one of the lowest in the peer group. And our assistant directors, so one level down, or people that really matter, those do at every level, but in terms of the management team, they appear to have similar salaries and equal or wider roles. And if you take into account the fact that we have a local authority with a higher population than many, and arguably, given what we have to deal with, at least as many issues as others, I think that is some assurance for us and some assurance for residents that we're judging this as we should. We have to remain competitive. I've looked at retention and turnover. That suggests that we are. Our gender pay gap interests everybody. It's published annually, measures the difference between average hourly earnings between men and women, and the figures for last year, a little bit of detail, show that we employed slightly more men, but on average the female hourly rate was higher, 2.7% higher than their male counterparts. Right to point out, we're a living wage employer. This really matters. It matters for hundreds of people because that higher rate will make a real difference to the quality of life and the standard of living for some 350 employees or third-party employees. We also look to cascade that down into our supply chains. So it's one of those few examples in life where good policy, when adopted and enforced, makes a material difference to the quality of life and the incomes of many. Last point for me is just to touch on the exit gap, which is a cap to the sums of money a ceiling of £95,000 that applies to all redundancy payments, severance payments, pension strain, cost retirements, lots of complexities here. But there is just a point to make that these government changes, which look like, to a degree, were aimed at fat cats or their equivalent, and we have very, very, very few of those, actually will impact employees, middle level and other employees, because of the related restrictions and the related impacts upon those who might have to be made redundant. There's also some technical changes which are far from technical if you're at the receiving end. So whereas once employees made redundant over the age of 55 could choose to either receive an enhanced redundancy payment or an enhanced pension, they have to they would have got both before, now they have to choose one. So I just want to make this reference to a piece of government legislation, government change, that impacts many of our staff, at least potentially. It's a loosening and a weakening of their employment terms and conditions, and it is frankly to be regretted. Higher paid employees will leave on a higher pension, they're more able to weather the reduction than those who are in a different position. It's to be regretted, and it's worth us noting. But in the wider sense, or the narrow sense I should say, of the duty on us, we will be meeting it in full. And as I've described, Leader, we are a good employer with good opportunities for progression and career advancement. We pay, as we should, decent salaries that are broadly comparable to their counterparts, and we get a lot out of those great officers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I absolutely support this report because it does show how we pay the lowest incomes the most around our area with the living wage. We pay women fairly and promote them. It seems we actually pay them more. And also we have excellent top officers who earn a good wage, but actually are some of the less well paid across the county, which I know they deserve everything they work for, but actually are good value for money as well. So thank you to them for that. So are there any other comments? We see I have got Teresa Higgins and Adam Fox. So I'll go to Teresa and then to Adam, please.
Yes, thank you very much. It's just to reinforce the paper and to reinforce the fact that as a council, we do pay the living wage. We have done so for quite some time, and I think that's very important. I think the fact that we pay on average our women more is even a good thing, you know, because they work damn hard. But I also like to, on this one, is to thank all our officers, because during this COVID time, the first lockdown, the second lockdown, they have worked their socks off. They have worked really, really hard. And sometimes I think they get a lot of negative press for the things that don't happen, but actually I think they've done a damn good job, and I'd like to put that on record. So thank you to all our officers, and if Adrian could convey that to all of them all the way down, my thanks to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. That's really important and poignant to say at this point. So I will absolutely second that and repeat it. They have done a sterling job during this coronavirus pandemic, and they really have supported lives and livelihoods across our borough. So thank you for saying that, and I repeat that to all of our staff. Thank you. Adam, please.
Thank you very much, Leader, and I just wanted to reiterate some of those points as well. We, the politicians in this authority, make lots of the decisions, but we rely on our officers to implement them and to deliver some of those really important services day in, day out for us. And it's right that we recognise them. And there's a real thread that runs through some of the decisions that we've made tonight. It's about lowering people's heating bills. It's about providing council tax to support for those who most need it. And in this paper, ensuring that we pay at least the living wage for our staff, and that we ensure that where we are using contractors in any of the work that we do, that they also pay the living wage too. And I just wanted to touch on the point that David had made about the changes that are coming in terms of the cap on public sector exit payments. That's a political decision that's been made above our heads. It's been made by national government. They've had lots of representations from councils all over the country, from the local government association, from trade unions. I think this is a retrograde step. You know, some of our workers will have committed their time to public service in working for the council, and I think that putting a cap on exit payments to somebody who may have not been a high earner but has worked for the council for a long period of time, for 25 years, you know, and then to limit the payments that would rightfully be theirs, I think is a retrograde step, and unfortunately shows the political outlook of some in government. But I think overall this is a really important paper, and I echo what Councillor Higgins said, and you know, particularly in this past year, pay tribute to all of our staff for the efforts that they have gone to ensure that our community is looked after, and that we continue to invest in our borough for the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Just to pick up on your point about the pay cap and how that affects middle earning officers who've been here for a number of years, long service, long dedication, and you compare that to the way in which local government has delivered in COVID compared to these PPE contracts, and consultants have been paid millions of pounds for just a connection to some procurement being done. It is unbelievable. We see how officers lead on the ground, led with our decisions, of course, but how they work on the ground. And also they have been thanked by national government for their delivery of most of the pandemic response. And just to say, we have received 2 awards for commerciality, for entrepreneurial spirit in this council for the work of the officers. So once again, we are an award-winning council, 2 national awards, as well as other awards for different parts of different services, such as the Green Flag Award from many of our parks, the awards for our non-portfolio organisations in the cultural industry. So we are an award-winning council with excellent officers. And I just want to say thank you to Adrian, our Chief Executive, who's on the call here, and to pass on those thanks as and when you can to our staff. Thank you. So we'll move straight to the vote. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. And Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
4. That's unanimous, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Moving on to item 9.3, which is the capital expenditure progress and programme update. Councillor King, and there was at least 1 or 2 questions just to address with Councillor Dundas earlier, as we promised we would, which I know you will. So moving to you, Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm not sure if Councillor Dundas is still on the call, but I can't see him. But regardless, I will answer his question, and I will write to him to follow up, as I said I also would do. So first things first, what's the primary purpose of this report? It's to address, it's an obligation and a happily accepted one, to address where we stand on a really huge capital programme in terms of, this is the primary purpose, in terms of spend. This is capital management in the financial sense, although we've taken the opportunity to address some other issues, including the need to allocate additional funding reflecting changes and issues over the last challenging year for us as for wider industry. So this is a spending report. It is a precursor to a wider and overall capital resubmission. The whole of the programme gets an excellent scrub towards the end of the year. It's reviewed during the course of the year. Towards the end of the year, we refresh and resubmit and take the scrutiny and the challenge appropriately, as we should, in the run-up to this being presented to full council. To the particular questions from Councillor Dundas around Colchester Northern Gateway Sports Park, I think the first thing I have to sort of say is we need, although it's significant sums of money, he's absolutely right, to have some context, which is for a programme of this size coming towards its close, it's not unusual, it's not exceptional, like it or not, for there to be issues around closure of the final legs of any kind of complex programme, and this is no different. What is different is the compounding effect of a crisis that has affected much of the last year of this project. COVID has made a real impact to elongation of work, to the ways in which people can work, and thus to the costs that come down from the supply chain to us, given this is our contract. So that's the primary cause. So there are others as well, delays in works arising due to Section 278 approvals, which are around Junction 28, and pedestrian and other crossings, safe movement of people, all of these being essential to be done, and the costs are not in our control, depending upon our partners on highway matters in terms of their releases, approvals, as well as those who do the work for us. So Section 278, COVID-19, quantity, surveyor and scope adjustments, issues with power supply and connectivity, and changes to working practice arising from the elongation of the project. Those have all been drivers. They've all driven the sum that's today acknowledged within the paper as a change that's needed in terms of funding. Movement from one part of the wider project for Colchester Northern Gateway and South. And in that sense, this is also normal practice. There will be flexibility in the many moving parts that make up a very significant and related programme. There will be no immediate impact or effect elsewhere. This is always to be expected, that as we get towards the close of Northern Gateway, we would ensure that it could be closed well, and a little bit of scale is a help here, which is this is 3% or so of the sort of sum of the project value that we're talking about now. We will provide confirmation of that detail. That will be part of that process I've described, that towards the end of this year reviews all of the major and minor programmes and provides a readable, digestible and useful summary for any members. And of course that is done through the course of the year at different moments other than this. So back to the paper itself, having addressed at least the principle of the questions raised by Councillor Dundas. This is an opportunity to celebrate what we are doing. Despite the impacts of COVID, we have a really significant, still moving forward capital programme. It's time to applaud significant investments from town centre regeneration to housing, to Colchester's Northern Gateway Sports Park, as just addressed. 127 million, half of that we hope will run through into next year into commitments and spend, which will be hugely important for its impact upon local employment, supply chain impacts, and the improvements we want, whether that's better housing or better facilities, all part of our approach to making Colchester a destination and a place in which we could enjoy working or living There's lots of detail in here, but this is, as I say, an overview around spend, as well as some specific additions which require us to take the opportunity to approve changes to allocations. I commend it accordingly. The housing's been touched on elsewhere. That alone is really, really significant. This is a high level of investment programme that benefits the borough, our economy, and our working towards recovery, and I commend it accordingly.
Thank you, David. It's absolutely important that we lead by example in investing locally in our own economy, and at this time through recovery from COVID and the lockdowns that we are having. And I really appreciate your explanation there of Councillor Dundas's questions, referring to Northern Gateway, one of our biggest projects at the moment, employing people within our economy, and others mentioned earlier to do with Mercury, to do with our house building programme as well. So we are investing in a number of big projects and programmes that employ local people at a good wage and provide investment in our town that is needed to keep business and residents supported at this time. Thank you. I have Councillor Young and then Councillor Higgins. So Julie first, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I was going to say similar things myself to what you've just said. I just think that, you know, we shouldn't pass lightly over this report because it does demonstrate what this authority is doing. And it's about getting the basics right. And that's about investing in decent quality homes for people, new sheltered accommodation, upgrading what we already have is really important. And keeping people safe with our CCTV systems. We know how that is valued, but also looking at what we can provide, which is an enhanced service. So our sports provision at Northern Gateway, and we heard from Mr. Chilvers earlier on in the questions, and he talked about what are we offering new residents when they come to Colchester. And I think a glance at our capital programme would give them a reason to be cheerful, and it might be one of the reasons that we're actually moving to Colchester, because people, you know, buy a house here, but they want to see other things on offer too. And the investment in our heritage, like at Jack's and the Mercury Theatre, as Adam said earlier, was the only Arts Council funded capital programme to continue to during the COVID period, just demonstrates our commitment to carry on with this programme as best as we're able, because it's important for jobs for people, and we know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Teresa, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I will just echo what Julie has said and echo what David has said. The capital programme is very important. It allows us to do certain projects that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Obviously, I'm a bit biased with the Northern Gateway project, and being a sports lover, I'm looking forward to its opening. I know it's been a bit delayed, but COVID has put lots of things on the back burner. But as lots of people go on about the heritage of the town, you know, the capital programme is doing Jack's, it is doing Mercury. Hopefully with the town deal bid, we'll get some money to do some of the other pet projects that people like, and that will help Jumbo, it'll help the Roman Circus project. So we are going in the right direction, but these things cost money and we can't just do them overnight. As we discovered with Jack's, there was all sorts of heritage and archaeological things that had to be discovered and dealt with. And if anybody ever wants to go and see what was in Jack's when it reopens, go to the Roman Circus Centre and have a look. It is fascinating what's been found underneath there. And we can't rush these projects because, you know, when we find the archaeology, we have to do it properly. We've got to preserve it for the future generations to find out what is there and what has been there. As a tourist guide, I will declare an interest. You know, there's all sorts of bits and pieces from the town that we haven't discovered yet. So these projects do take time. They are important. So we just have to make sure they are done well. So I'll commend the report to people.
Thank you, Teresa. And finally, Adam, please.
Thank you, Leader. Just getting the unmute button sorted there. I didn't want to let this paper pass by without passing comment on it too. And I think Councillor Julie Young puts it really positively in terms of, and as has everybody else, in terms of just the scale of the investments that we're making as a council. And I think perhaps some of our residents don't understand just the scale of the projects that and the ambition that we have, that we're delivering for people. You certainly look around Essex, and there is no other council doing the sorts of projects that we're doing, whether that's on building new council houses, whether it's on the Northern Gateway Sports Park, whether it's the redevelopment of the Mercury Theatre, or the investment in our heritage and culture. And frankly, you'd be hard pressed to find another district or borough council across the country doing the sorts of scale of investment in their local economy that we're achieving for our residents. I think that that really needs to be recognised. That we are backing our town, we're backing our borough right now in what are really challenging times. But this scale of capital investment will have a real impact on our communities. And I think it just goes to show what a great place Colchester is to live, to work. And, as we heard from Mr. Chilvers earlier, there are people that want to come here, they want to start their life here, they want to get a new home, start a new business. And there are certainly examples of those people in our town coming here who are excited about the opportunities that Colchester has to offer.
Thank you, Adam. As I said before, and I do agree with you, we are backing our town. We are putting money, investment into homes, into culture, into business, into sport, you name it, we're doing it. And I have seen, when I've been to other councils locally and a bit further afield, working with the local government association, doing peer reviews, I look at their council capital programs and think, wow, that's tiny. And our ambition and our investment in our own town is second to none. And I think that is important. We have to get the message over to our residents that this project, maybe this project your partner is working for is actually a council project. You're working for a company that's working for us, that's been contracted to do this job, to invest in our town. We need to celebrate that, the ambitious program that we have. So thank you, David, and the officers for putting this forward, and for all of the officers and contractors working on the projects, investing in Colchester, backing our town. So thank you. We'll move straight to the vote with Andrew Weavers, please.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox?
4.
4. Councillor Goss?
4.
4. Councillor Higgins?
4.
4. Councillor King?
4.
4. Councillor Lilly? 4. Councillor King? 4. Councillor Young?
4.
4. And Councillor Corey?
4.
4. That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you all. We can move on to the fees and charges paper. I'm aware we've got about 3 or 4 papers to go and may be able to finish before a break if we're efficient with time, but we'll see how it goes. So item 9.4, fees and charges, over to you, David, please.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to present yet another paper about money. This one is about collecting it. We are backing our town, we are backing our borough, and we are providing high quality, often award-winning services. To do that means that we need to raise income. We've had a lot of conversations across the council chamber and beyond about the financial challenges we face here in Colchester. They are as significant as most local authorities. They're a pale reflection of central government, and they have to be met. And those challenges this year onwards, this next financial year onwards, include what do we do about fees and charges. And I want to just be really clear, there is an absolute financial imperative that makes it necessary for us to nudge these sums of money up that we're asking residents to contribute to help support the services they want elsewhere. We're doing that deliberately because we do need to raise income, as described in the paper. What we get here is as significant as what we get in total from new homes bonus and council tax and our share and portion of business rates. So this really, really matters. We've been excellent, ambitious and successful in providing services people want, and they're paid for it. But we've had a torpedo in the middle, a pandemic and the economic crisis that's gone with that. And I have to sort of say some of that's been mismanagement elsewhere. We've had to live with that, so have the residents. And we've done that this year. We're balancing the books. We're taking action where we need and where we can to reduce our costs, taking some really uncomfortable decisions about staffing levels in future years, and we'll be back to this again. We weren't able to convince enough fellow members of the need to raise money through means like garden waste charges, and we understand why. So what tools have we got beyond reducing cost, getting smarter and looking for better ways of doing business, all of which we're doing? Well, we can look at our charges and our fees. Some of those have not gone up. Some of them are shaped by national legislation. Where they can be adjusted, we have done so in a way that many will see as reasonable, related to capital tax increases in the past years. So the paper we have, ahead of a wealth of detail, is really about the principle of income raising. And all I will sort of say to Cabinet and to those listening is we're doing our best to strike a balance, to be reasoned in what we do, to absolutely ensure we're looking for where there are sensitivities and where there is need, and to shape our propositions accordingly. We're positive about our ability to manage our way out of this as a good organisation, award-winning organisation that has a real commercial flair. But fees and charges, it's right, they go up. And this is the paper that encompasses it.
Saved by the bell. Thank you, David. Another important paper with lots of detail in there, which we have gone through with other councillors representing all of the borough on a number of occasions, and have had budget workshops, David, led by you and finance officers, which we really appreciate. So this paper has been seen by all councillors, and is backed in terms of being able to balance the books, and no other ideas have come forward. We have put forward our own ones, and this is how we managed to make small increases in order to pay off the big black holes that we have due to COVID, as you have explained. We've done that in a number of different ways. This is just one example. So thank you. Are there any other comments? I can't see any hands up. So at this point, I'm happy to move to the vote. So Andrew.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox.
For.
For. Councillor Goss.
For.
For. Councillor Higgins. For. Councillor King. For. Councillor Lilly. For. Councillor Young. For. Councillor Corey. For. That's unanimous, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I make it 8 o'clock, and I'm aware we have a presentation with the next item. So I will actually accept a break at this point, being right. And hopefully after that, we can come back and efficiently finish the meeting with our remaining papers. So for the break, I would ask that we put our screens to off and mute our microphones, please. Thank you all. See you back in 5 minutes at 8:05 or 6 past. Thank you. Okay, shall we resume? Thank you, Richard. I think we have most of us back, and we can move straight to the positive parking strategy. And Councillor Mike Lilly, do you want to introduce this and move to Richard, who's come along this evening to present? Martin, have you, sorry, Mike, have you returned? So we don't have Councillor Lilly yet, but if I can move to you, Richard, Richard Walker, good evening, then we can go back to Mike once he has returned. So Richard, over to you, please.
Thanks very much.
Oh, there is Mike.
There's Mike.
Mike, would you want to come in after Richard, Mike, or do you want to come in now?
Yeah, Lady, sorry about that. I don't know what I was doing. I could hear someone talking. I thought it was myself. I know, I'll just say a couple of words and then I'll hand over to Richard because he's the expert on all this. I'd just like to say that there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about the strategy, and it's called a positive parking strategy. And I believe it is positive. The simplest thing that we could do, if it's all about money and raising money, we would just put the fee up all over every car park, everywhere, and just leave it like that and raise the money, if that was the case. But it's not, because we have tried to look at the green agenda which we've got, and also to look at the retail side of it, because the town is struggling because of the virus, and we're struggling as well. As a council, we lost an awful lot of money through the income of that, and we are still committed to that. But it'd be so easy and to do that, but we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is actually look at some positive benefits to it. We've got some really good technology to use. We're working with the bid in the town centre. If they sign up to the My Permanent app, which is coming, shoppers can get a discount off their parking. So that's a great initiative. It helps us, it helps the motorists, and it helps the shops, which is the most important thing is. If people, they want a cheaper alternative, they can park in the slightly outside of the town ones. Butt Road, Britannia, Sheepman Road, Nuns Road around there, all those areas, they're going to be cheaper than parking in the town centre. So it's entirely up to them. They've got the choice. They want to do it if they want to go for it, but we believe it is a positive strategy, and don't believe the hype that's been written about. It's about a positive side to it, and all those people who say that they can go for free parking in Felixstowe and Sudbury. There's no such thing as free parking. Petrol costs money to drive all that way, and how are you helping the environment by doing that? I'm afraid that the cost of petrol is going up, but it's not free at all, and it's not cheaper. So stay in Colchester, help us, and create a positive atmosphere around parking. And I'll hand over to Richard now. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. As a short presentation, those who know me know that I literally can talk for hours about parking, so I'll spare you that and keep it as brief as I possibly can. So some magic will happen in the background. Really pleased to launch the positive parking strategy for Colchester tonight. The next slide, please. Preparatory work we've been doing. In the background, we consulted by survey. We asked customers in car parks and online in February 2019, and that included the bid. We included their statement in the original document. We've an absolute wealth of data from which to draw. So we've used some evidence-based decision making to get to this point. And there's a lot of links to the source material in the document, so I'd recommend you have a look through that. The document's been through the governance process at some length, including scrutiny panel, who supported that at the end of January 2020. And we consulted on the final document again during summer 2020 with the public. And the final document here represents all of those pieces of consultation for our launch today. Could the next slide, please? I always pop this one up. It's really difficult to make a balance to support national policy. The new active travel, the recent changes proposed to the Highway Code to consider all road users and new hierarchy for them, county policy and local policy and direction. We're continuing to support the town centre by providing the right parking for the town centre as it develops. Can I have the next slide, please? Just to point out a bit of a strategic approach really in supporting the council's strategic priorities. The focus of the document is on 4 work streams with 12 priorities. We had a much larger document and we've focused it right down here, and the environmental issues remain our top priority. And from tomorrow you can see the document on the website. Have the next slide, please. We're trying to promote choices in travel and enabling more time for people in town and travelling at the times where you don't add to congestion. The environmental issues can't be ignored. We're in changing times, and all of this is discussed in some detail in the document. We need to show some leadership in the area around the environment. Can I have the next slide, please? My discounts is something new that we're going to be trialling here, first in the country in conjunction with traders and the bid, and that brings footfall into the shops where you'll be able to claim your discount actually in the store with the trader. We'll be enabling customers to spend longer in the town with new tariff ideas, and we're going to be proposing a parking account. We've got a new thing, first in the country again, called Park Active, which opens up cheaper parking to shoppers from the long stay car parks, and that's from just 50 pence per hour under the new tariff we've seen there, and supporting other transportation policies, including active travel. Have the next slide, please. There's huge benefits to customers, and this is an enabler. We're enabling easier payment, simpler tariff structure with different tariff bands in future. We're going to be re-exploring the way we charge in the town with new discounts and promotions. We shall have offers on charges at certain times where they fit in with the environmental theme. And we'll be developing a parking account so customers don't need to carry coins. And probably the biggest thing of all we're going to be promoting within the lifespan of this document is payment after parking. Everybody used to remember the thing with the barriers. This is completely frictionless that we're talking about here. Technology enabling us to pay on account. And with some evidence that the dwell time, what we call it, that's the stay length, increases. Sometimes quarter of an hour to 30 minutes per stay with evidence of that happening. Next slide, please. On social inclusion, we're enabling easier parking offers and discounts, and we're exploring some call-off season ticket for workers, those for shorter terms or part-time or unconventional working patterns. Again, a brand new thing that we're going to have during the lifespan of this document. And provision and adjustment of the blue badge parking to suit usage, but recognise it's not really free, but this is not, and I repeat, not remit for charging for blue badge holders. This is about providing the right provision in the right places. And with my other hat on, NEP is looking to set up an anti-fraud team for blue badge misuse as well. And the last part of this is around providing clear signage and branding for parking type and wayfinding. So there we are. The document is attached to this. If you just want to scroll through a couple more slides as we go. The parking strategy is here. Will be on the website tomorrow. It's really innovative. A number of firsts, demonstrating leadership in many areas. So have a scroll through this tomorrow. Have a read through it in detail. And I really do recommend its adoption tonight.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Mike, for the introduction of this. Richard, we really do appreciate your efforts across the borough and your work with the North East Essex Partnership Parking Trust, the North Essex Parking Partnership, and your efforts across the country when you get involved in a number of different things where your expertise are welcomed. So we know that we've got a very good officer here following national innovation and leading in certain areas as well. So thank you for your contributions here. We all believe it's better to involve and consult, and we've done that over the whole year, of course, working around COVID where possible. And I know there's been contributions from businesses, residents, other groups, accessibility groups, disabled groups. So I think we've done the best we can to come forward, yes, with some small increases in some areas and different charging in others, and to promote the green agenda to ensure we're trying to reduce the reliance upon car usage, especially at the high peak times. So Mike, I'm not sure if there's anything more you want to add, but I can move to Councillor Higgins and see if anyone else wants to contribute. Mike?
No, really, I think we've said it all, really. It's a lot in there. We're quite happy with the way it's going forward. We are going to be using some new technology. Hopefully, as Richard was saying, we've got some parking sensors coming that you put down on the road, and that you just drive over them, connect up with Bluetooth. You pay for exactly what you want. We would love that everywhere, but it costs money. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the number plate recognition coming back in, so you pay as you stay. It's going back that way. It's really looking forward, and I think that it's a very innovative and a really good initiative, no matter what people think. So I'll let you hand over to other councillors. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. We've got a lot now indicated to speak, so please keep your comments brief. I'll move to Teresa, and then to Adam, then to David, then to Martin. Teresa, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to support this paper. I think people sometimes get the wrong impression about parking. We have an ancient town. You know, the walls were built by the Romans. We've got problems. We've got air quality management. And what we're trying to do is to give an offer to people so that if they just park just slightly outside and walk in, it would actually make the life better for everybody in the town. And I think people have got to understand that. Gone are the days where unless you've got a problem, a disability or something like that, you can just park outside the shop, rush in and rush out. They've gone. You've got to plan your trip. And as Nick Chilvers was talking about new residents, I think new residents take this on board a bit better because they come to a town, they see how it works, and that's what they do. It's sometimes trying to persuade the minds of long-term residents who've been here, oh, I've always been able to do that. Well, I'm sorry, but we do have problems in our town centre. We have an air quality management problem that really needs to be sorted out. Just come to my ward and I can tell them about it. And when the traffic really gets bad, it's backed up in front of my house. So I think this is a positive parking partnership. It's a positive way forward. And I would encourage people, if you're coming into Colchester, just park on the outside, walk in. It'll do you good. It'll be cheaper that way. And it'll do us all some good. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I really want to back Councillor Lilly's leadership on the parking strategy, and you know, and it's great that we've got the expertise in someone like Richard Walker as well to deliver on it. I think Mike has really set out a vision in terms of how we continue to, you know, run car parks and manage parking, but in a way that you know, takes the mood of where we are now in terms of protecting the environment and supporting the town centre and continuing to encourage people to come and visit and shop in Colchester as well. And I think what we've seen over the last week is, you know, a couple of people make some quite sort of silly comments about the parking strategy and our approach to parking, and I think, you know, they'll have to eat their words, because what we've clearly seen from the parking strategy tonight is a commitment to continue to provide offers for people who are parking in Colchester, but also to protect some of those groups as well. And I know that, you know, Councillor Lilly has probably done more than most on this council to protect the rights of people with disabilities as well, and to continue to support them to access the town centre. So I think this is a, you know, a fantastic approach, a really great vision, and it's really good to see us setting the tone and doing some really innovative things to continue to support the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. David, please.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say one brief thing about the attitudes of business, because they can be misrepresented, and passing moments are just often just that. What you're doing here is setting out an approach that's more than of the day, and it's more of the moment, and it goes beyond the support we're providing business in the bid now. This is about the longer term, and the longer term has to be viable. And so I just simply put, I applaud this. I'll help you in connecting up with bid and business if in any way I can, but I stand behind this as the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Martin, please.
Thank you. Residents, and there's been comments following the Gazette story, and of course, not all of the facts have been presented, and hopefully tonight, Richard and Mike have put together the whole story. But to add to that further, bus companies have a part to play here, because if people want alternatives, bus companies need to ensure family-friendly pricing and greener, cleaner and more reliable buses. So that is also part of strategy that bus companies need to get behind, because it isn't just about dealing with parking and changing the way parking is charged for and delivered via technology. So that is a point to bus companies. I hope they do pick up on that, because there's a lot of money to be made if they get their pricing strategy and their timetable right. But also, we need to make sure that people who are parking here know where to find the excellent deals that will happen, how to engage with the discounts from retailers, and therefore communication is absolutely important to underpin the strategy, because parking at 50p an hour is obviously exceedingly cheap. And there's always commentary about we are more expensive than Chelmsford or Ipswich or neighbouring towns. And if Mike wants to come back, I think it would be good if he did, just to confirm that we do regularly benchmark pricing against other towns, and Colchester is cheaper or certainly comparable even with the change of approach, because in reality, the majority of our car parks are not going up in price, they are staying the same, and only a small handful are actually changing the pricing structure, but they are not changing at weekends. And I just think we need to get that message out there, because I think it's been wrongly conflated in the press and possibly by other means. But Mike, if you want to come back and just confirm about benchmarking, I think that would be helpful again to bust another one of those myths that Colchester is more expensive than Chelmsford or Ipswich.
Thank you, Martin. Mike, just to finish up there, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. It's very true. For the last few years, people say, "Oh, it's so expensive. It's much more expensive in Ipswich and Chelmsford," but we're not. Absolutely not. And the deals that we had the last couple of years, it's been fantastic. You could park in the town from 2 p.m. to about 5 o'clock in the morning for £2. How cheaper is that? And look at what we've got in Colchester that they haven't got. We've got all our ancient heritage. We've got all those Roman history, Civil War history. We've got the history of the Dutch court. We've got everything. This is a tourist area. What has Chelmsford got compared to us? And yet we offer a really good deal with our parking. And people do that. When I used to go on holiday abroad, when you get there, you don't look at the price of parking and say, I'm not going to pay that, but I want to go and see the castle. I want to go and see the art gallery and everything else which I desire. So we are doing really well, and it's a shame that more people don't big us up and support us rather than just have a go at us all the time. As for the stories, I won't comment much further on that, but we'll be putting our own stories out in video in the future. I think that it may be the only way that we can get our point of view across to that, Martin. And you're right about the bus companies. They should do their part as well. If they did their part, offer deals, more people would use the buses. And we are helping out the Park and Ride. Our initial goal will be to raise money, or if we've got some spare money, to have electric buses going around the town centre. And if those bus companies can't provide them, we'll look at doing that ourselves as a council. And those bus companies would have missed out on a really good deal for us. They should jump on board and come on board with our apps and not theirs. And I have to thank Richard Walker for all the hard work that he's done. He's a fantastic guru of mine, and he's converted me over to the park and church. I now attend webinars now about parking, and I find it interesting. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mark, and hopefully everyone will support this, and we can move forward to make Colchester a better, greener place.
Thank you, Mike. I was about to say, on that note, before you go off about your parking webinars, let's end it there. I just want to say 3 things. This is sensible, consulted upon, and it's a balance between the green agenda and supporting business. Those 3 things are really important. The Conservatives and colleagues attacking us offer no solutions, just criticism. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Richard. And we'll move on positively with this parking strategy. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
4. Thank you, Leader. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Andrew. So we move on to item 11, requests for delegated authority for the procurement of fleet for helpline, neighbourhood services and pest control. And we had a question relating to this from Councillor Dundas earlier, which I'm sure Martin can cover, and in part Adrian Pritchard, could help explain as well as Chief Exec and lead for Amphora. So I'll move to Councillor Goss, please. This is a positive paper investing again into green items. Martin.
Yeah, thank you, and apologies, you can't actually see me. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me? Yeah, good. So yeah, apologies, you can't see me on the screen. I think if I put my camera on, I think everything will going to melt down. I don't know what's going on with my broadband, but never mind. Maybe I need to procure a new provider. This report is important because it is talking about replacing 21 vehicles from various council departments and services, which are listed in the paper. And we are going out to procurement to either purchase or lease up to 21 vehicles using the latest technology that is appropriate. We have talked about electric vehicles heavily. We've also talked about hybrid. There will also still be the purchase of standard diesel vehicles where appropriate, where technology does not allow. So let me just cover off some of Councillor Dundas's points, which he raised earlier. So would it be advisable to lease until the design and performance were further improved over the next few years? Well, this is why we're going out to procurement, because other councils have already gone out and bought all electric fleets, and it's failed because they've gone to market too early. So we are coming at a time when technology is maturing across a multitude of different technologies. And as part of the procurement exercise, we will purchase appropriately. We're not going to go out and purchase 21 electric vehicles. If it's not appropriate for certain vehicle types, we will buy other or lease other types of technology. It might be hybrid, for instance. So this is what the procurement exercise will do. What this is going to do is do it within existing budgets. So the fleet is coming to an end. Some of the vehicles are 7 years old, and that means they are more than at end of life, and they are spending more and more time being repaired because they are at that period where they've done many miles on the road serving residents, and they absolutely need replacing regardless of whatever technology we choose to procure. We're working with the Energy Savings Trust on this, and their advice to us was go out and learn from other councils and don't make the same mistakes where the wrong fleets have been purchased. It might look good on paper, but it has been a disaster to operate. So vehicles that clearly just can't travel far enough. So we're not going to make those mistakes, and we're not wedded to purchase or lease. Generally, purchasing is working out to be cheaper, but we will go out there and do this procurement exercise properly and see what proposals come back from the companies that bid. And as I say, this is not going to cost the council any more money. It's in existing budgets. So in general terms, we have moved away from lease hire to direct purchase, as this has proved to be more economic in recent years. The dust carts are an example of that, where we spent £4 million buying them rather than leasing them. And it does also mean we own them at the end of life. We can sell them on, or we can carry on operating a few of them as spare vehicles in service, like Chelmsford does, for instance, which gives them more capacity. And as I've said, the paper is seeking a decision to delegate authority to purchase or contract hire. And this is the approach we've taken successfully to date with both the food waste vehicle procurement and phase 1 of the light fleet procurement for the cage tippers. The outcome of the procurement process will determine the final decision whether to purchase or lease, taking into account existing budgets. As I've mentioned, I've also mentioned about the Energy Savings Trust and about their advice from other councils, and we're also they're also shaping our carbon footprint and outputs as part of the exercise. So it's working in collaboration. Where there are concerns reference performance, alternate options are being suggested in the paper. The use of hybrid for helpline vehicles and not electric vehicles for 4x4s is a good example. Retaining electric vehicles as an asset over time doesn't have a negative impact either as well. So there are advantages if we did go the EV route for some of the vehicles, owning them for longer. One issue with leasing vehicles is that often the end of hire costs are higher because we have to pay certain costs at the end depending on mileage, etc. And the fleet contract will include obligations on the contractors to ensure that the council is kept informed about the latest environmental technology innovations, and we will obviously keep that under review as part of this process. So to conclude, the budget is £726,000, which is, as I say, existing budgets that we would have had to procure or lease to replace the vehicles. And there is also an addendum in there for up to £114,000 to be spent on electric vehicle charging technology, which would be at Rowan House, whilst also future-proofing the supply at Shrub End as well, if we end up getting all electric dust carts in the future, because that will need higher voltage installing as well. There is a £14,000 grant available potentially as well if we go down that route, which obviously we will be applying for. So I hope that gives you a fair, robust and deep summary of the paper. I welcome any questions. If not, then happy to go straight to the vote and obviously get the excellent officer team to start moving this process forwards.
Thank you, Martin. You've helped answer some of the questions there, and you made it clear and simple of our approach being to step forward with greener technology, but to be flexible, to make sure we do it in the right way and learn from mistakes of other councils and try and step the right foot forward and actually get the right balance. So thank you for that. Adrian Pritchard, our Chief Executive, wanted to come in and just explain in terms of some of the questions that were asked earlier, I think. So Adrian, please.
Chair, thank you very much. I know Councillor Dundas asked a couple of questions, actually. One was around the cost of the procurement service that the Borough Council provides to Amphora. And actually, Amphora buys a significant amount of services from the Borough Council. So its HR function, for example, and services, it's some of its finance, procurement, IT, customer service, you name it. There are quite a significant number of services that Amphora buys from the Borough Council. It pays the Borough Council something in the region of £250,000 for its support services. And that's why the procurement service is used by the Borough Council on behalf of Amphora. They pay for that service. In terms of the vehicles again are split use. Helpline use them sometimes, and clearly when Helpline use them, they pay for all of the costs, all of the leasing, full costs, etc. So there's no cross subsidy. There's no lower cost for Amphora using Colchester Borough Council's vehicles. They pay the full cost as if they'd gone to any other commercial dealership and leased the vehicles. So on both counts, Amphora pays for all of the services and pays for all of the costs of the vehicles when they're using them, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Again, very simple and clear. Thank you for that explanation. and it is for the benefit of the people of Colchester overall, whether that be the environmental impact of helpline using hybrid or green vehicles, electric vehicles, or simply the income generation that comes in to support other council services, or directly the helpline service that they get as residents as well. So thank you for that explanation. I think that is all in terms of those who want to speak on this item. So thank you, Martin, and we'll go to the vote. Please, Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Councillor Fox?
4.
4. Councillor Goss?
4.
4. Councillor Higgins?
4.
4. Councillor King?
Absolutely. 4.
4. Councillor Lilly?
4.
4. Councillor Young?
4.
4. And Councillor Corey?
4.
4. That's unanimous, Leader. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Moving on to item 12, heritage interpretation. This is a paper that we had from the Policy and Public Initiatives panel, and I'll pass to Councillor Julie Young with the portfolio responsibility for heritage and culture. Julie, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I think there should be a short presentation of some nice images for you to look at while I'm talking to you, which has just come up. So if we can move on to the second image, which is about interpretation. As you rightly say, Leader, this is recommendations that have come from the policy panel. During the evening, there was a detailed presentation by Philip Wise documenting the interpretation work that has taken place in recent years, and it is particularly extensive. So not just 28 new panels, but a range of other creative approaches from the station to the town centre trail and marking the Roman gates through to our subway murals. The council will continue to look for opportunities to improve the ways we engage and bring these fascinating and important places to life across the borough. Work is currently ongoing at Hillyfield, St Bottles and Holy Trinity Church. Improving interpretation, though, is not all about information boards and signs. It's about digital interpretation too, and also walking trails. This year, the Visitors Information Centre are developing a new walking historic Colchester Trail leaflet for visitors, featuring a brand new Siege of Colchester tour and the redesigned Roman and medieval walls and gates tour. We're also developing alongside Go Jauntly walking app, a digital trail from the town to Wivenhoe, initially following the public artway markers which celebrate the council, the Colchester's rich port and maritime related heritage. Just talking a little bit about the Ancient Colchester app that the policy panel referred to. This was developed as part of the refurbishment of the Colchester Castle. Much of what is included in the app has been around for thousands of years, so it's still relevant, but I share the desire to add the app and update it to include more sites. Given the age of the app, though, it's never a simple task, as we're needing additional finance to upgrade that. And given the difficult situation regarding the council's budget, we need to prioritise our spending. Leader, there's always more we can do regarding interpretation when you're lucky enough as we are to live in such a historic place. The limits are endless. Ever mindful of the budget position, our approach focuses on linking interpretation with partners, infrastructure projects such as the New Towns Fund, and looking at 106 heritage funds or external funding opportunities. As portfolio holder, I'm confident and proud of the work we have done and continue to do so in this area. And with no specific examples from the panel, I will continue with the improvement plans we already have in place. We move on to the next slide, please. The policy panel asked to look at, looking for agreement from the Cabinet to look at a wider approach to the way we market the borough through heritage. And I just wanted to mention what we're doing already, really. And there's the sheer breadth and diversity of the Borough of Colchester's unique heritage, from major sites like the castle to hidden treasures such as the Copford Church medieval wall paintings, which is central to the council's promotion of the area to visitors. It is threaded through our core marketing activity, such as the annual Visitors Guide and our Visit Colchester website and social media, and has inspired a number of one-off campaigns. Since 2018, these have included If Our Walls Could Talk campaign that featured stunning photography of our most important and visually impressive heritage sites, including the castle, St Bottles Priory and Chapel Viaduct, on billboard, back of buses, online and print advertising, reaching an audience approximately 7.1 million people across the channels utilised. Slide 4, if we can move on to that. And this is just a reference to our Sky TV advert. And this is Colchester's first tourism TV advert. It was developed to boost it in terms of posts on social channels. This advert and the spectacular drone footage of sites like Castle and Priory has been utilised many times since, including the new Visitor Colchester destination website, where it was supplemented by newly commissioned video of other key sites such as the Roman Walls, Learmoney Tower, the Abbey Gate and Dedham Church, as an example of how investing in high quality marketing material at the outset has an ongoing legacy and reaps rewards long term. We were recently contacted by the BBC requesting some of the footage used on the website for use on Michael Botello's Great British Railways Journeys programme. We move on to slide 5. The ad also featured in cinemas across the southeast of England in the summer of 2019 as part of the official tie-up with the popular Horrible Histories Rotten Romans family film. This reached circa 50,000 people from a key target demographic for a very modest outlay. The advert has been shown in other contexts by local partners. For instance, prior to COVID, the University of Essex used it on their Chinese social media channels to attract students to Colchester, and it's been shown at conferences and other events. Slide number 6. Which you will remember, Leader, the Roman invasion. So this was a campaign featuring a day-long invasion of Liverpool Street Station, supported by a month-long station concourse ticket gate advertising campaign featuring striking graphics of a Roman centurion with a backdrop of ancient Colchester sites. This reached a total audience of 2.3 million station users during this period, travelling through the second busiest station in the UK. The campaign graphics for Roman invasion were also later used in a campaign in partnership with Colchester United, which included pitch-side advertising and half-time screenings of Our Walls ad. The actual graphics used as a backdrop for the pop-up Vic were taken to Wetzlar by the Colchester Twinning Society for a big public event later that year. Just about current projects in development, this year Visit Colchester saw a significant revamp for its website in responding uptick in use during the summer despite COVID restrictions. The 2021 Visitor Guide and Discover Colchester mini guide, a Google AdWords campaign with a heritage and short breaks focus, supporting the new website, the development of Walking History Colchester walking trail leaflet for visitors featuring a brand new Siege of Colchester tour and the redesigned Roman and medieval walls and gates tour. The development in conjunction with the Go Jauntily walking app of a digital trail from Colchester Town Centre to Wivenhoe, initially following public art way markers which celebrate Colchester's rich port and maritime related heritage. A new Liverpool Street advertising campaign planned originally for April 2020 has been postponed until footfall returns. So in conclusion, sadly, gone are the days when I'm likely to be able to invest in a new TV ad, but we are lucky the one we did is so good it continues to be relevant and usable. Big campaigns are also challenging in this financial climate, but we do have some planned in. Our most cost-effective marketing is done through social media, particularly Facebook. So I'm not currently in favour of the policy panel spending more time looking into this, leader, and would rather let the experts get on and deliver the plans they already have in place. I'm always happy to hear for sites to be suggested by councillors, but we do have to be mindful of the budget restraints we have at the moment, and we do have a lot of work in trail that we need to focus on. Our Heritage Task and Finish Group spent a lot of time working up their proposals, and we are busy getting on with those. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Julie. And I'd really appreciate, I see how you feel about it, but that presentation to be given to the policy panel, I think would be really helpful just to explain where we've got to. And your last comment is absolutely right, that we set up a Heritage Task and Finish Group about 3 years ago, and it worked for at least 18 months coming up with advice, and we implemented some of that. We're still working through that. But as you say, with budgets as they are, with COVID as it is, and with tourist numbers down and footfall down because of COVID, then we need to be very careful about what we do and how we target our spending. So I think we understand that your thrust this evening is to not accept the policy panel recommendations, but I would wonder if you could deliver that sort of presentation back to them and explain the reasons why, because you've outlined to us this evening the investment that's been put in, the feedback and the way in which that has been used again and again has been really useful. And the support that's been given to our cultural and heritage assets over time, shown by those pictures, is really helping to re-highlight our history for people. So thank you. I've got Adam, then David, if we can be quick, please. Adam.
Thanks, Leader. I'll be quick, but I just want to say, wow, I didn't realise we were going to get that sort of presentation from Julie tonight. And I think it was a tour de force. It really goes to show the extent to which we do promote Colchester's heritage and its history. Now, for some people, maybe what we do will never be enough, but I think that that clearly demonstrates over many years what we've done to promote not just the Roman history, but history over thousands of years in the borough. And that focus on heritage and culture remains one of our key priorities as a council, as an administration. So I think that whilst we might not have more committees to sit and discuss some of that work, the council will be getting on with continuing to promote all of those great historic and cultural and all the arts organisations that provide such a kind of a wealth of entertainment and things for people to do across the borough, both for residents and visitors. So I'll fully back what Julie has said tonight.
Thank you, Adam. David, please.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add one short piece, which is about that relationship with business, which is implicit in all of this, that we're doing this for our residents to draw people into that destination of Colchester, to make it good for us, good for families and friends, good for people who want to come and stay here. So two things follow. One, there's a huge amount, and it's so well expressed tonight, thank you, of source material, which can be used and used and used again. We need to make sure we do that. We make it accessible, we encourage it to be shared. And with that goes the richer relationship we have with the bid. The fact that we are encouraging our marketing and our comms teams to work closely with them. And that becoming more natural will offer real opportunities for the bid to use some of our material and vice versa. So our approach ahead to market the town should be something which is symbiotic, mutually growing And I think this is great source material, and I thank Julie and officers concerned.
Thank you, David, and thank you all. Thank you, Julie, for the presentation. And I'll move to Andrew, because we just need to accept or not these recommendations, don't we?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah. Councillor Fox. I'll come back. Councillor Goss.
Very much support.
4. Councillor Higgins.
I support, thank you.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
Sorry. Well, you know, what the recommendation is asking is to approve the policy panel to look at a wider approach to the way we market the borough through heritage. And I think, you know, what I've tried to set out is what we have been doing and what we continue to do. So I'm not supporting a recommendation for the policy panel to keep on looking at the wider approach to the way we market the borough through heritage, because you know, we're already doing that, and it would really be a waste of officers' time to repeat the work that the Heritage Task and Finish Group have done. So, you know, I'm voting against.
Can I be clear and just check? I thought that Councillor King, Councillor Higgins have just supported your approach, Julie, which was to actually continue with your work and not to accept the recommendations. So I want to make that clear, and then I want to go back to Andrew and say, actually, Andrew, Julie's proposal is not to accept these recommendations and instead to continue the work she is doing. And I've asked her if she could take that back to the policy panel. Therefore, in order to support what Julie is saying, it'll be a vote against these recommendations. If it's a vote for them, then that's absolutely clear. But I think people were voting for Julie's approach, which in effect, Andrew, if you concur with me, would be a vote against these recommendations.
I would agree. Could we have a seconder to Julie's proposal, please?
I'm happy to do that.
That's David, thank you. Right, so I'll start the vote again then. So that's the proposal that's been put forward by Councillor Young, that we do not accept the recommendations from the policy panel. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
Again, 4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
4. So that's unanimous, Leader, that the proposal put forward by Councillor Young has been approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Young did accept to take that back to the policy panel with her presentation. Thank you, Julie. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Andrew. To item 13, which is the calendar of meetings. A report put together mainly, I believe, by yourself, Andrew, and Richard Clifford and the Democratic Services team. So, Richard, I believe we are happy with this calendar of meetings. Is there anything you need to explain to us on this report?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think so. I think the report speaks for itself. Just recommends a calendar of meetings that is largely based on the current calendar for this year.
Excellent. Are there any comments from other councillors? Teresa Higgins. Teresa?
Yes, I was just querying, in September you've got the special council meeting. Is that the one for Alderman making?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Just clarifying.
Are there any other comments? I cannot see any other hands up. Okay, thank you, Richard. We will agree those. And again, just move to Andrew for the whole report.
Leader, I don't think with this report you need a formal vote. I think you should just ask for cabinet members if there's any dissent from the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any dissent? No. Okay, and we're happy to agree the calendar of meetings going forward. Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you, Andrew, for stepping in there. Thank you, Richard, for putting that report together. And we'll move on to the progress of responses to the public. Richard, again, can you confirm that we have responded to any other have your say comments? I believe there may have been none last time, but we have responded this evening and we'll follow up with written answers.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, the report confirms that the have your say speakers we've had at recent meetings have had their comments dealt with.
Excellent, thank you. Really helpful. And we always get back to the public and answer their questions, so that's helpful. Thank you. Therefore, we get to the end of the meeting. Of the business of this meeting, we have some confidential financial matters to attend to in the normal way in a confidential matter. So, Julie, are you happy to go through the exclusion notice? If not, I'm happy to do so.
Yes, if I can find it, Leader.
If not, I'm willing to go through it now.
Oh, but be my guest. Oh, here it is. No, I found it now. So I move that in accordance with section 100A, open brackets 4, close brackets 4, of the Local Government Act 1972, and in accordance with the Local Authorities Executive Arrangement, Meetings and Access to Information England Regulations 2012, the public, including members of the press, be excluded from the meeting for the following items as they involve the likely disclosure of an exempt information is defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Local Government Act of 1972.
Thank you, Julie. We adjourn the meeting and go into private session. Can we just agree that, everybody?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay, motion passed. Thank you. See you shortly. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Adrian. Good night.